Hello and welcome to this quick video looking at ideas for Christmas presents. If you are a radio control enthusiast or you have a radio control enthusiast in your life, what could you potentially get him or her to put a smile on their face on Christmas morning? Now, I've also added this time an extra little list at the end. If you have a friend or a buddy, maybe at the flying field or somebody who flies radio control with you regularly, who's done something nice for you and you want to show your appreciation, I've put together a little list of those kind of small, inexpensive things, but that will hopefully put a smile on their face when you gift them those at this most festive time of year. If you have any ideas yourself or things that I've missed, because this is just my list, there are loads of extra ideas, better ideas out there, I'm sure, than I'm about to tell you about, do pop them down below. So if you're watching this video, do scroll down through the comments. The viewers of my videos are incredibly smart and have some fantastic suggestions. So let's get into the list. So let's talk about tool ideas. First one I would put on the list are the Vi-Fly smoke stoppers. This is mine that I've had for ages. It's incredibly handy when you're commissioning stuff. It can be set for 2 specific current cutouts. It's also very handy if you have an XT60 battery and it's an XT30 quad or vice versa. You can just plug everything all together, and if you have made a hiccup or something weird does happen or the motor starts in an uncommanded way, the smoke stopper will make sure that the power is cut off and it'll isolate the battery. I have this as just a safety check when I'm commissioning on the bench, but it is incredibly handy just for doing things like, because you can turn the output on and off via the press of a button, doing things like binding receivers on older FreeSky systems. Being able to just press the button while holding the bind button in is very, very handy indeed. Next one are vernier calipers or some kind of very accurate measuring device. These are mine that I've had for ages. I'm old school, so I don't use digital ones, but the digital ones, if you spend a little bit of money on them, they're going to be decent. But even the cheaper versions are better than just trying to eyeball it with a little ruler against the side of whatever you're trying to measure. I use these all the time, particularly when I'm designing 3D printable parts to make sure that everything's going to fit absolutely beautifully. With these, you can not only measure the outer diameter, the inner diameter, but also the depth of recesses as well. And with this and a micrometer, you can probably do most of the measuring that you're ever going to want to do. But it's very handy in those instances where you don't know, is that an M3 screw, an M2.5 screw? What kind of depth does the screw need to be cut to so that you don't screw into the bottom of the windings when you're putting it on the arm of the quad? All those things can be fixed by this thing here. Next thing, I would also consider you getting yourself some high quality hex drivers. These are ones that I've got here. They tend to last me about a year. They get a lot of abuse, and over time, even really nice high quality ones will lose their sharp edges and their ability to bite in some screws. A lot of the screws that we get in the models that we play with radio control, some of them are Chinesium and strip out really easy. Some of them are actually made of decent quality aluminium alloys. Some of them are more exotic stuff like titanium. Some occasionally are just old stainless steel. But having a good set of hex drivers will allow you to spin a fastener out that other things will struggle with. Multimeter. Now, I just have this one here. These are relatively inexpensive, allow you to check the resistances on the input when you've built something to make sure you haven't got a dead short anywhere, but also very handy for making sure there aren't any breaks in the cables, that the voltages that are supposed to be there are where they're supposed to be, and you'll see them being used occasionally in my builds. When you need to troubleshoot, this thing is worth its weight in gold. So if you haven't got one, I would get yourself one and just have it on the corner. Sod's Law says if you have one ready, you're not going to need it. And the last thing then on the list is get yourself a decent soldering iron. There are lots of different ones around. Some of them rechargeable, some of the USB powered. Having a decent soldering iron and some decent solder will make your life an awful lot easier. I know lots of people watching the channel struggle with soldering, and it's one of those things that you have to practice in order to get good at it. Getting a good soldering iron and some practice boards is great. It means that you can just sit and practice, so then if you do have to solder some wires onto a flight controller, you're not going to make a horrible mess of everything. It's also not a bad idea to think about asking people for some spares, particularly things like a set of motors or a 4-in-1 ESC or a flight controller or two, those kind of things to have around. I tend to have a box full of this stuff, so whenever I get a new frame or model in, I can just pull what I need out this box and get it sorted out. But I like to make sure that everything I need is in here, so have a think about that. Particularly things like flight controllers, with the recent hiccups with things like Maytech and the supply chain. It's worthwhile, if you are thinking of a build over these dark, cold, horrible nights in winter here in the UK or Europe or North America, this is the perfect time to maybe get all those pieces, and it'll be a nice project for you to do when you're bored of watching the TV. Also an opportunity to maybe treat yourself to a spare set of FPV gear. Maybe you could ask for money that was going to go towards maybe the DJI Walksnail or HD0 system. If you are still analog and you're looking to make that move, might be an option to put the money towards investing in that stuff. And the other thing that's maybe worthwhile thinking about is treating yourself to a little action camera as well. I personally like things like the Runcam Thumb Pro. They're relatively cheap and cheerful. There's loads of different versions around. You can get them pretty much everywhere. You can power them from the battery, which means that you can just stick them on the quad or plane or whatever and get fantastic images, or even have them mounted pointing backwards, so you have kind of a rearward view as you're flying and flipping around. You can also think about maybe just asking for the different parts that you need for a build. Maybe it's a frame, maybe it is a Walksnail unit or a GPS or an antenna or whatever it is. Just have a think about what you might be doing over the Christmas and New Year and into January, the builds you might be doing, the things you might be upgrading, the things might be changing. It's not unreasonable to ask for those things. And what I would do is personally give whoever you're offering the suggestion to an actual link to it on the shop that has it in stock, so that they can order the exact right one that you want in the right colour. And my other suggestion, of course, I know lots of people who watch the channel are multi-rotor pilots coming into the fixed wing side. Also an opportunity to treat yourself to a new plane or wing build. I'll put a link down below to my kit picks video from August this year, but all the stuff that I really love is kind of exactly the same. Things like the VCI Dove is great for soaring around on really calm days. The Atom RC Dolphin, Penguin or Swordfish are amazing at pretty much everything. Things like the Reptile Dragon 2 is a bigger twin, perfect for more endurance and longer flying FPV. That was the one that I put the Walksnail pan and tilt head tracking stuff on, and there is more coming as well, including something that's coming out this month that is quite funky if you are a more established flyer. Last list, as I talked about in the introduction, this is more for those of you that might have a buddy that's done you a favour in the year, helped you out with something, and you just want to show your appreciation. These are the kind of things that's very handy to have in the bag that you take to the field, or have on your bench at the corner, so when you're doing things, you can do things a little bit faster. Things like a propped up spanner are incredibly handy. There's loads of different ones around. They're relatively cheap and cheerful. Most can be used as a keyring, but they are worth their weight in gold when you find that your prop is loose and you're at the field. Things like lipo-safe bags. You'll occasionally hear of content creators and other pilots occasionally getting into trouble where a battery will let go. Lipo-safe bags aren't there to save you life and basically to allow you to completely ignore a charging battery. Never leave a charging battery unattended. But if you've got a lipo-safe bag, when things go bad, then you've got a chance to pick it up and throw it out the window and stick it in the garden before it sets anything else on fire. I also like to have a good amount of decent XT60, XT30 and XT90 adapters in my spares box. I would recommend get the proper stuff from people like Amass. People like 3DXR have them in stock. I tend to order from there. I used to order from places like eBay, and some of the stuff was made of nylon and it would just melt when you got the connector a little bit hot and it would be out of alignment. Treat yourself to a sort of bag of those, but it's a great little gift for somebody who does a lot of building their own. They will always be thankful to have some high quality XT60s that won't melt when you try and solder them up. Obviously, a tube of Yoo-Hoo Pour or similar. This is my go-to glue. Ben mentioned it when I did a video with him a week or two ago. He sells a lot of this stuff, but I always like to have a full one of these and a spare as well. It gets used all the time to repair stuff, but to glue 3D printed parts onto models, to repair foam, all kinds of stuff. Other idea is a roll of Blendern tape. Blendern tape was something that Trappy at TBS put me onto. It's what I use to connect the control surfaces of high performance planes. It gives a very sticky, very flexible connection for the control surface, and it's very stable. It's not one of those things that will just peel off. You go to get it out the garage after a winter stored away and you find that it's all fallen off. The Blendern is incredibly resilient. It's actually designed to be something that's used in a medical environment on skin, but it is just, in my experience, it's just the best stuff. The other one is a spare receiver for their radio, particularly if they're into something like Express LRS. A spare receiver is not going to break the bank, but having a spare one in the spares bin for the next model, or to swap out, or even just try things on the bench, is always a welcome thing. And finally, the last thing you can do, which isn't actually something you can buy, is kind of in their little Christmas card, give them, I just tend to print out a little voucher, which is one free consultation. And it just means that those people who are getting a bit stuck at the field, rather than feel that they're pestering you all the time, what they can do is just sidle up to you next time they see you and kind of hand you that little bit of paper and go, "Can I call in my favour, please? I need a bit of help with my radio or my flight controller or my iNav setup or my HDFPV system," whatever it is. So those are the ideas. Hopefully that's given you a few. Again, if you have any real good ones, do pop them down below. And best wishes to all of you at the festive period. Don't forget, I probably will be doing draws over Christmas, so make sure you're subscribing and keeping an eye on the channel. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 60 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.